I definitely have a love-hate relationship with mobile gaming. Most of the apps on the store nowadays are either pay to win or just glorified gambling. But some mobile games are still super nostalgic to me. I grew up on an iPod Touch and an iPad, which were basically the handheld gaming device of Apple back then. If you were a kid, all you could really do on these things was game, and it opened me up to a whole new world of gaming I'd never seen before. A lot of the content I make on YouTube is inspired by Flash games since they're special to me, and I think mobile games are kind of the natural continuation of that. Both of these things are super nostalgic for a lot of people, and when you really look at them, there are a lot of parallels. Early mobile games were basically like Flash games in your pocket. Limited content, pretty rough, and super experimental, but full of personality. A lot of these had no real development team behind them, so you're kind of just stepping into the mind of 1 to 2 people when you load some of these older games up. And I really think you could see that same creativity in these little apps that made Flash games so memorable. And that's why I think making content on both works for my channel so well. So here's the thing though, and the whole point of this video. What happens when it's not just a couple people tinkering on a Flash game and instead it's a whole team pouring their full game over to mobile? The result is still a weird game with some charm to it, but in a completely different way. It's marketed and built to a wider audience. Which is cool, but it also changes the vibe entirely. All those risks small developers used to take in little experiments that made the originals fun, a lot of that gets lost in translation, and what you end up with is a familiar game that just feels a little off. I'm Yap Jitsu, and if this kind of stuff like old mobile games, Flash games, and just nostalgic internet things in general sounds like something you might be interested in, you might want to check out my channel. I dive into this stuff all the time, and there's plenty more coming.
We've been putting time in the hood, but we gotta get the homies back together. Like the old days.
Let's talk about Grand Theft Auto on mobile first. Rockstar actually ported a ton of their classics like GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas all to the App Store and Google Play Store around 2011 to 2012. Funny enough, San Andreas Mobile was actually my first GTA game, so it kinda holds a special place in my heart for me. I remember first playing it and just being blown away. You have massive open world you could roam around, steal cars, and do missions. It really just is GTA but on a phone. Now the controls were definitely a little bit of a learning curve. Touchscreens aren't exactly made for the insane number of buttons GTA has, but Rockstar made it work surprisingly well for what it was. They kept most of the story, side missions, and content intact, though the graphics were scaled down a little to make it playable, but that's kind of a trend you'll see with all these games. GTA 3 and Vice City were also awesome, don't get me wrong, but San Andreas really stood out to me. It had the biggest map, a ridiculous amount of side content, character customization, and even minigames that made the world feel alive. For a lot of people, it was the ultimate mobile experience at the time, and basically a full console game, but in a phone. What's cool is that these ports didn't just copy the original. A whole team worked to make sure cars were handled differently, driving's physics were adjusted, and missions were tweaked so that they were possible on touchscreen. Even a decade later, it still holds up as one of the best mobile experiences on a phone. San Andreas on mobile was one of the better ports I've played. It captured so much of what made the original great, and for a lot of people it was basically a full GTA experience in your pocket. Next up is Call of Duty Zombies on mobile, and man, these games were creepy to me as a kid, but I loved them. Unfortunately, they were both removed from the App Store, which makes them almost like lost media, but not quite. You can of course still sideload them or get APKs for them. World at War came out on mobile around 2009, and playing it recently I got hit with this weird liminal feeling. The empty hallways and groaning zombies. If you played World at War, you know it's one of the scarier COD Zombies games in general. You could do everything in Zombies normally on these ports. Run around the map, find the guns, barricade the doors, and even just try to survive wave after wave. Even though it was just on a phone, it somehow captured a very close feeling to the console version. But god, the touch controls were awkward, aiming was a mess sometimes, and the atmosphere made up for it though. I actually used to play COD Zombies on my phone just to practice for Black Ops 2 Zombies with my friend. It was basically like our training mode. Black Ops 1 Zombies followed a couple years later, and it polished a few things that World at War didn't. And I know this is the one people remember more, but World at War was the one that really stuck with me. For some reason, the sound design, the dark corridors, and the way zombies just appeared out of nowhere made it feel like you're trapped in a nightmare.
I think we need to turn the power on. Hoorah.
Dead Space on mobile was something else. It's basically the same game as the console version, just squished into your hand, and for me it somehow made it even creepier. Like a game you shouldn't be playing. It was really cursed feeling. I don't know if this is just me, but this game feels creepier when it's just smushed on a tiny screen because it's so much more isolating. You have to really pay attention to see what's going on, and the game already leans into tension so much, so you're just constantly scanning and looking out for threats. There were times where I'd just pause the game for a second before opening a door because I need to prepare for it, like turn the light on or make sure I don't get jump scared by an alien. What's crazy is how much it captures that feeling of being completely alone on a ship. Some areas have room to explore and others are almost claustrophobic. I remember looking at the walls and thinking like, did I just see movement? And then I'll realize later it's just my mind playing tricks on me.
Vandal, get out of there quick. With a tram. They're coming through the walls. They're coming through the walls.
The touchscreen controls are so bad it almost makes you more careful, and this was definitely one of the weirder AAA games ported to mobile. Fortnite and mobile on PUBG were kind of a disaster when they first came out, and they felt like something that tried to cram these huge complex games into a phone and it didn't really know how to make it work. Fortnite's building controls were an absolute nightmare. Trying to make a ramp or wall in the middle of the fight could take 3 times as long as it would on console or PC, and half the time you just fall off instead. PUBG Mobile was definitely better and more manageable, but everything felt completely off compared to the PC version. It was like the games were figuring themselves out and you were just there for the ride along. Of course, these games have come a long way on mobile since those first messy versions. Their controls are way smoother now, the graphics actually look like the full game instead of a blurry mess, and a lot of those weird glitches are gone. It's kinda crazy to think about how far mobile gaming has evolved in general. What used to feel awkward and half-baked can now give you a pretty solid experience in your hands. If you haven't heard of Ark, it's basically a survival game where you're stuck on this huge island full of dinosaurs and other players, and your goal is to survive, build, and tame creatures. The official mobile version now of this game came out in 2018, but there was an alpha version of this game a little earlier that I actually prefer. Ark used to be my favorite game on PS4, and I know it's not exactly the best game out there. It's janky, clunky, buggy, and honestly kind of horrible in a lot of ways, but I somehow got like 5,000 hours into it. I don't even know how I spent that much time on it. Something's probably wrong with me. But everything in that game was so much fun to me at the time, like raiding players and taming dinos or just building my base. I loved survival games in general. Ark Mobile is far from perfect and very cursed at times, I mean look at it, but it still captures the core of Ark, the exploration, survival, and that little panic when a T-Rex or player shows up outside your house. It's also another good example of, like I said, how far mobile ports have come. They all used to feel stripped down and tiny, but Ark actually manages to give you the same experience as the PC or console version, just a bit of cut content. But yeah, I love Ark, and I'm happy they ported this game to mobile because it's just pretty cool. It's not something I really would have expected from them. And finally, Red Dead Redemption, the OG Wild West epic from Rockstar. This game originally came out in 2010 and damn, it looks ahead of its time. But yeah, it came out on PS3 and Xbox 360 and it's been ported to modern platforms over the years. But the most interesting of these ports is definitely the fact that it's on mobile now. It hit iOS and Android in 2025. What's crazy about this one is how fully featured it is. You don't just get a trimmed down RDR1. It includes complete single player game, plus the Undead Nightmare expansion where the world basically turns into a zombie apocalypse, and even bonus stuff from the Game of the Year editions. This version is officially developed and supported by Rockstar, which means it's not some weird emulation or sketchy port, but it is $40, which is insane for a mobile game. Or if you have a Netflix subscription, you can actually get it for free, which I did. But yeah, it's pretty cool that it's the real Red Dead Redemption running on phones with mobile-friendly controls. Some people are hyped because iOS devices can actually hit 60 FPS and look sharp. RDR1 is a special game to me because I played it so much as a kid on my PS3, and I honestly think the multiplayer is a lot better than the second one. I know that's a controversial take. I feel like some people will agree with me on that though. I just like the vibes of the first game in general too, but yeah, the story's not as good, sure. But this game is still surreal to play on an iPhone, and it just proves how capable phones are now, and it's kind of the reason I wanted to make a video on this topic in the first place. I think it's safe to say Rockstar kinda runs the whole mobile port scene, and when you think about it, like not every company out here is putting full game experiences on phones. Even if they're not the best, it's still something you gotta respect. They'll actually take their time to bring over the full experience, most of the story, full map, and everything, and RDR1 is the full story. Like this is an entire port of the original game, which is just crazy that we can do that on phones now. And that's why their stuff stands out so much. When you see a Rockstar game on mobile, you know what you're getting. It's a polished package, basically. It's not going to be perfect, but yeah, it's legit. Before I get to the outro, I just want to quickly say, yeah, I didn't cover games like Battlefield Mobile or COD Mobile, because that's not really that they're bad or anything. It's just that they're completely new experiences made for mobile. They're not ports of the originals, you know? And I want this video to be about games that were actually on console or PC and then brought to phones, not just spin-offs. But that's going to be about it for the look at popular games that went mobile, and some of these ports surprised me, some were a little rough around the edges, and all of them show how far mobile gaming has come. If you've got a favorite mobile port from this video or one I missed, please drop it in the comments, I'd love to hear it. Big thanks to everyone if you're still watching or if you just clicked on this video in general, and stay tuned, there's always more weird, nostalgic, and crazy games to go back into, and as always, have a wonderful day.